Jets Guru here in the house. What is going on, everybody? Nice to talk to you. Good to chat about the New York Jets on a victory week. It doesn't really get better than this when you're talking about being a Jet fan. You're talking about the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. You're talking about 3-3 mark. You're talking about Zach Wilson starting quarterback. Yeah, even the baby's excited to talk about Zach Wilson because when you look at the New York Jets, they are hitting their stride as a team. They're finding an identity. We always talk about it on Jets Guru about how a team, it takes probably about 4 to 5 weeks for them to find out their identity. And the Jets have had a hard time. They lost their starting quarterback. They had to find a new scheme for Zach. Zach had to respond to that scheme. And I think everyone's pretty much bought in at this point. How could you not be as a player? You're right in the mix of everything. Now, there's a lot of teams that are 3-2, 3-3, like that type of thing. But all of that will resolve itself soon, and we'll talk about that later in the show when we talk about the schedule, because we play a lot of those teams that are right in the mix with us. But for me, it's just the excitement again for the Jets. And listen, there's holes. We know there's holes on this team, especially offensively. Not too much defensively right now, but offensively for sure. But this is better than what we've seen from Zach Wilson. They're playing complementary football, giving the defense at least a chance. And that's what we ask because we know that the Jets probably could have blew the Eagles out. And that was what was so frustrating about that game is that the Jets could have lost that game. And you would have looked at it and said, how did they lose this dang game? And obviously the focus would have been on the offense and Zach not being able to get touchdowns. But hey, you got down there, you got points, and you go ahead and you build on that. It's not like Philly was stacking the scoreboard either. And Philly has a top 10 defense, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not an easy game across the board. And just because the Jets defense might make it look easy in a particular game, it doesn't mean that the opposition that we're going against that their defense is necessarily that. That's why I give Zach a little bit of credit here. He's got one turnover, in these last few games that he's kind of turned it around. And I love that for him because the emphasis is not on him and it shouldn't be on him. Now we can't just hand the ball off to the running back like they used to, pre 90, pre 2000, and just kind of coast. But you have to have a quarterback that can make those throws. But I truly believe that Zach can make all those throws. And I think you're seeing him evolve and being comfortable and being able to get rid of the ball quickly. And that's what I like to see from him. Just be complimentary, give your team a chance. They have to do better on third downs. They have to do better on their play calls in their play series. But man, what a huge victory. And it was led by the defense, and they just brought it. I think I saw a stat earlier that Simon posted that says that I think Bryce Huff, he's like touched the quarterback more than anybody, like his percentage rate or something like that. He's coming into his own. Jermaine Johnson is coming into his own. I think Mosley has just always been uh, that guy that's always been professional, that's always been there. We already know the dedication that he's brought in losing all of that weight to get on the field to play in Robert Sala's defense. You see Quincy Williams coming into his own. I think they're the highest rated tandem in the NFL in coverage, if I'm not mistaken. I saw that stat, and that's crazy if you really think about it, because you would have not thought that could have been possible from these two. But when you have players that work extremely hard, that are extremely talented, and they also get into a scheme that actually favors them, I believe, in their skill set, where Robert Sala lets these guys play, and at least on the defensive line, he keeps them fresh too. When you start getting into the third and fourth quarter in games, and you have a guy that has a rotation that's nine deep, it's like everyone you send at him is a fresh body that you would have no problem with the Jets going out there and being your starter, let alone be some kind of situational piece. And that's what I love. I love that Ulbrich is blitzing a little bit more this year. And that's so critical. And we spoke about that last year, and we knew and we saw that Quincy and Ulbrich had that little kind of back and forth on the sideline, like, hey, you don't need to send those blitzes, like, we got you, and it's like, hey, man, like, I know you got me here, but like, well, then get me. And then it was like, and then after that, I felt like, the defensive line really started to pick it up. The Jets started to come into their own before all the injuries just kind of walked them down towards the end, and it made their defense vanilla. But this year, Ulbricht's mixing it up a little bit, taking a little bit more chances, trusting the players. You also have to remember, too, last year, this is a guy that's getting all these new players constantly. The Jets are building their roster from the ground up. They're implementing things with these guys, and it takes a while for them to buy in and to think as instinctually on a play, not just say, okay, where am I supposed to be pre-snap and where am I supposed to be after the snap? And what did he say? I can't hear him. It's just, it takes time, and you start playing with people a while, and you look at the Jets, they've mostly been intact now the last couple of years. So it's really, really good. Really, really good to see this team kind of start to come into their own because, this team had Super Bowl aspirations. And just because Aaron Rodgers goes down, you should still be able to see the remnants of what that would be. Just like you look at Bill Parcells' team that he took against the Broncos and lost in the AFC Championship game with Vinny and the Jets, and they came back the next year and Vinny blew his Achilles out, but that team still showed over the course of the year, even though they had a ton of injuries. Oh, wow, they were really talented. They lost most of their good players at some point that year, including their starting quarterback, and they still were able to scrap, a pretty decent season together by the end of the year. And I think that's what you're seeing with this Jets team, that it was well built, and that if Aaron Rodgers is here, there's a good chance that the Jets are in 3-3. There's a good chance they're probably more likely 4-2 because we probably win that Patriots game too. But who's to say? Because you can't complain, right, guys? How could you really complain when, yeah, you lost to the Patriots, but then you beat the Eagles? So it kind of makes up for it because you thought that they were going to beat the Pats, but you didn't really think they were going to beat the Eagles, and they kind of stole one from Buffalo. And that's when that one in Buffalo comes into play more now. If you would have lost to the Broncos, then it's kind of like, come on, man. Now you're getting ready to play the Eagles, but you put yourself in good position to go back home and play a team that you look at a lot of analysts. Yeah, they were 5-0, but they were struggling too. Jalen's been struggling a little bit with the turnovers. And so you went up against a team that you probably underestimated, and they just kind of like nickel and dimed them, field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal. And it's just, and then you can't do anything offensively because they're just stifling you. And then it's like, probably, I would imagine the pressure starts to build just a little bit. And that's when you started to see Jalen kind of just make really bad, uncharacteristic throws that he normally doesn't do, at least last year. That's kind of the stuff that you saw from him his rookie and his second year. And it's just such a big win. It was one of the best wins I've seen as a Jet fan when you piece together how important the season is for a lot of people. You're talking about Zach Wilson. You're talking about the Jets. You're talking about the front office. And so for me, that was a huge win. But I'm going to go ahead and bring Liz in. And Liz, tell us, you were at the stadium, I'm assuming as well again. Just tell us a little bit about the vibe in the stadium and then how you felt as the game started, because again, the Jets got to a slow start offensively.
Yeah, absolutely, Daniel. The crowd was into it from the get-go at the tailgate. I talked to so many people and nobody really had a negative attitude. The week before we really did well. We didn't come away with the W, but we came across as a team that, you know, has some phenomenal players, and Zach is looking good every single week. He's a little better, a little better, a little better, and the crowd was so into it. I felt almost like I was at a concert because we were standing more than we were sitting, and all the people around me. Shout out to my family in 250A. We have a great group in my section right behind the goalpost, and we were just excited, optimistic, and yes, in the beginning we were going to say, okay, in the first couple of games you can't win a game on field goals, but you know what? You can beat the Eagles on field goals. And what about my boy Q? Q coming away with a pick. I mean, it was just one thing after another. Brees Hall, his name must have, came out of our mouths probably 15 times. We were just so excited with his play. And the crowd was just really, really into it. And nobody was down, even from the beginning. We all, I'm getting everybody around me into the mindset that we aren't going to lose this game. We're going to win this game. And I never, ever put my team down. And I never say, well, it's the Eagles and we never beat them before. I just had this feeling, and it was exciting and it was amazing. And to see all these Eagles fans leaving the stadium, and they were quiet as little church mice. They just didn't say a peep. And it was some game to be at. It was, I'd say, in my top 10. It was unbelievable. Really, really fun. Really, really a great way to go into the bye week. And now we got a away/home game. I try to go to at least one away game a year, and it's going to be the Giants game, but it's going to be awesome, and I'm really optimistic with that one. But I'm optimistic with every game. I never think my team's going to, forget it. We're going to get the loss this game, but it was great. It was so great.
Yeah, Liz, I wish I could be like you in that way, because I'm so in depth with it that my brain can't comprehend sometimes what this offense puts this defense through week after week. I mean, I'm just waiting for the one game where the Jets offense really just blows up. And I'm not talking about, the game that they played against the Broncos where the Jets, score. I'm talking about where Zach Wilson goes out and throws like 3 touchdowns and Brees runs for 1 or 2, and it's just a big blowout, just to give them a break, just to give them a sense of like, hey man, like we could just breathe for a little bit. Because the thing about the Jets, man, they've been struggling in the first quarter and they've been down, and then they always have to come back, and that's great, but it can be quite exhausting as you get towards the end of the year. And I know for fans, sometimes it is, but when you're winning, it's fine. And the exhaustion feels like a drama that you lived through that was like so wild and experiencing. But when you lose, it's torture, So for me, and shout out to 19 New York Jets 69 uh, uh, on YouTube. We don't get a lot of people on YouTube. We're trying to translate over, so appreciate the support. Also, we got Victor and Scott and all those guys. Thank you, Eric, for jumping in. And then we've got a few more people that are just starting to jump in now as I started to share the page. Jonathan, thank you. But yeah, I really do. I really do hope that Zach has one of those games, and sooner than later, to just give this defense a break. Because as we saw last year, it was really hard for the defense. It puts a lot of pressure on them when the field gets flipped and teams are at your 45, 50, and it changes how you call the defense. You can't really pin your ears back and go after guys, because 1 20-yard throw and you're in field goal position nearly immediately. So the Jets offense has to drive, has to get, at least a couple series where you're pushing into the 50, the 40, and not just getting points, but getting touchdowns. Because I truly believe as the offense puts points on the board, the Jets defense gets stronger, because they realize, wait a minute, I think that we're like going to get this game if we just keep this up. Now, I'm not saying they don't have that mentality the whole game, they probably do, but it can be demoralizing. You see how they act, you saw how they act last year when the Jets struggled and Zach struggled. It's human nature, and these guys are young kids that are used to having success in college. That's why they got drafted so high and got to the NFL for a lot of these guys. So it's a weird transition for the Jets, but I am happy they are 3-3, Liz, because that Eagles game was super exciting. And it was really momentum changing. It gives us a chance to kind of be in the mix for a little bit longer than we thought that we can even be. And I told people, I said, the Jets have to stay within 1 to 2 losses of 500 to have a chance in December. And
Right.
they've exceeded that mark now at 500, and they come out and they play, like you said, a home away game against the Giants, who are struggling big time. If the Jets were to lose this game against the Giants, it would definitely take away some from the Eagles' victory. This is one that the Jets have to have. This is a statement game that I believe the Jets have to have against the Giants, but we'll get into that next week because the boys are resting right now. They're on the bye week. And Liz, the bye week is going to be great for them because they're going to get Sauce back and they're going to get Reed. And that brings us up to talking a little bit more about this defense. I mean, I I'm going to let the rest of the year play out first before I make any type of declarations. But
Mm.
when you have a team go without their first and their second and their third corner, because remember, guys, Michael Carter was hurt as well. And so you're going three of your top cornerbacks out, and you have practice squad guys come in and they hold the fort and do what they have to do. And the defensive line forces Hurts into 3, 4 turnovers. I mean, you can't ask any better than what you're pretty much getting. And they're
Right.
really starting to get a name for themselves where you're starting to see top players from other teams start to talk about the Jets, like Travis Kelce, and you see Micah Parsons and a few other people have said very nice things about the Jets. And you've even seen people kind of take after Zach Wilson a little bit in defense, even people on other teams like, hey, he's still a young player. And I think we forget about that with Zach Wilson a little bit, right? It's kind of like he's given us a lot of changes happened over the last 3 years in general. And it feels like he's been here longer than what he has been. But isn't this kind of what you want to see from a third year quarterback?
Hmm.
Progress, right? Movement. It's a little bit more stunted. Yes, I will agree. In your third year, you should be rocking and rolling, but this is a brand new offense for him. And now I don't even know how much to that extent of that offense he's actually learning and how much of it is a swing towards what is good for him and what he knows. So it is a learning process for a guy that struggled, for a guy that's now learning a new offense. He wasn't expected to be the starter for this team. He was thrown into it, and that's fair enough. He's the backup quarterback. If he's not ready for that, then hey, don't be the backup quarterback. And I think he's done a really good job up to date this year with the responsibility of taking over for Aaron Rodgers. And Liz, now he has his team set, in motion to kind of take over a little bit. Now, I wanted to know a little bit more, Liz, about the tailgates. How have the tailgates been? How have the crowds been as we see more people, more fans? Anthony is in, and Mike Thomas and Guwap and those guys. So, how was the tailgate experience at the Eagles game as well?
Great. I got to experience in full force Jetman's tailgate, and it was awesome. Shout out to him and his team, 200 plus people, and the crowd just seems to be so into it and so optimistic. Like I said, the chants are getting louder. The high fives are getting more and more. Uh, you know, in the front. They just everybody's excited. Everybody, nobody seems to be going into it with a bad attitude. And even against the Eagles, they had a feeling that this is going to be different, and it was. And we were just so excited. As much as we enjoyed the tailgate, we couldn't wait to get inside and get the game going. And yeah, everybody was just having a great time. The crowd was just so into it, and there was nowhere near as many Eagle fans, I'd say, as there was the KC game, when it seemed like it was almost 50-50. And that had to maybe do with some celebrities that were there, but it was amazing. And we didn't have as much of a problem with Eagles fans that I thought we would. um they were a little quiet, especially after the fourth quarter. But yeah, it was just a great time. And I want to ask you something from 2 weeks ago. We discussed what
Mhm.
happens if all of a sudden our miracle quarterback, with his phenomenally quick repair of his Achilles, what happens if he does come back, late 11, November, December. What do we do with Zach? What do you think?
Well, I mean, when you look at it, it's really a miracle that he's doing what he's doing, and it didn't even look like he was really gritting it out as he was practicing. He looked very comfortable. He was turning his hips as he was throwing the football. It wasn't like he was just kind of out there throwing, softballs or anything like that. Like he was really putting something on it for as far as he could do. He looked good in the movement, and he stood on the sideline the whole game. Now, there's been guys like Cam Akers. I think Cam Akers came back in 3.5, 4 months,
Mm,
which was really, really fast. And he's a running back, which a lot more cutting and burst is needed. But regardless, he's going to have to be cleared and healthy to go. Once the doctors clear him and say he's healthy, then it's more of a mental thing. And then it's more, I wouldn't even say a rehab because he's kind of doing that in the process, getting it strong enough to play over the course of the next few months.
mm,
Um, I think when Aaron comes back, if it was to be this year, Zach would have to sit down. And it's just like anything else. Now, if it was maybe a starter, like a veteran starter we picked up in the offseason, that wasn't that influential, I would say, yeah, then maybe you roll with Zach. But you're not going to tell Aaron Rodgers, who's healthy and ready to play, hey, I'm going to need you to sit down because Zach Wilson is going to start against the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend. I just don't really think that would happen. I
no.
think one of two things are going to happen as it gets closer. I think if the Jets are kind of winning, losing, and it's kind of like mid-December and they need to go and have like a couple victories here, beat these teams, then there might be a chance because it's like, Zach at that point most likely is just handing the ball off, not making mistakes, getting a first down here and there. And then
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, you're going to need a little bit more firepower in the playoffs. And I just don't know if Zach is ready for that quite yet. I like what I see with the quick release under 2.5 seconds. He looks real good. Most quarterbacks do. He's helping his offensive line out by doing so. Now that he's able to do this, defenses can't stack the box in the same way. So when he does these checks and all these things, they can't just send all out blitzes because he is getting rid of the ball quickly, and then they get burnt for a screen or a quick slant or something over the middle. Zach has zip on the ball. He could get it out quickly. And one thing that these defenses, I think, are banking on is to try to push Zach outside of the pocket and rolling because that's when he starts having to play guesswork, looking around, deciphering defenses. And I tell people all the time, they're like, well, get Zach out. That's what he does best too, is out on the run, get the design rollouts. But it's a little bit different on the design rollouts. Like he's just rolling out because he's feeling the pressure when
Mhm.
really he needs to step up, evade, use your hips, use your footwork, and then step up in the pocket and make a throw. And I think you've seen more of that from him. You've seen him kind of almost get taken down and somehow escape or kind of squirt out the side and then make a nice throw. It doesn't seem like a lot, but those like 2, 3 plays doing that and then stepping up in the pocket instead of rolling out and throwing the ball over the middle, 2, 3 plays there. And then by the end of the game, he has 7 or 8 or 9 completions he wouldn't have had if he was just rolling outside of the pocket every time he felt pressure. And then also as an offensive lineman, how do you know how to block for someone that's just running randomly? Or you don't know if he rolled left or right. You're trying to read the defender's eyes and the shift and the pull of the defense as you're moving. And like it's so hard to play football when you're constantly evading. You
Right.
you you have look at Mike White, the success that he was able to have last year in minimal time with the Jets. It wasn't because Mike White was great, even though I like him. It's because he stood in the pocket and he had weapons to deliver to. And
Mhm.
Zach has plenty of weapons to deliver to. So if you get towards the year and Wilson is playing like a top 15, 13 quarterback around there toward going towards the end of the season, it might be a little hard, but at the end of the day, if Rodgers is ready, maybe they might say, hey, I know you're pushing it a little hard here. Zach is doing well. Maybe we coast. Or maybe it's one of those things where maybe you roll with like Rodgers in if the Jets win a playoff game. But then you
Right.
go, how do you take Zach out after he wins a playoff game? It all depends on how Zach plays. It all depends on how Zach leading into the playoff plays. If he's struggling, but they're still a playoff team, then it's like, okay, well, let's get Rodgers in whenever he's ready. But then
Right.
if it's like he's kind of just holding the fort up, I'm still with let's hand it over to Rodgers. But if he's playing and performing well, then it's like because the argument's going to be made. We're trying to win a Super Bowl here. I don't care who it is. I want the guy that's going to give us the best chance because at the end of the day, Zach Wilson's going to be here next year, most likely. And
Yeah.
so is Aaron Rodgers. And then what's going to happen then? Are you going to have an open quarterback battle? Of course not. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, he is going to be your starter. So
Right.
one of two things are going to happen at the end of the year. You're going to either have to trade Zach Wilson and get some kind of value for him, or it's just impossible to really say because there's so many scenarios.
Right.
What if from here on out, for some reason, let's just say it just all clicks for Zach, and somehow you see him, he's starting to grow a little bit, and then for some reason everything just slows down. He got the big victory against the Eagles. He's played well against some good competition, and they go out and they beat the Giants, and then we got to play the Chargers, who kind of like we've always played well traditionally against the Chargers, like we
Hmm.
always have. And I'm not really in love with them. All of a sudden, let's say like the Jets are 5-3 now. And then they open it up the playbook more. And then he starts throwing it down the field. And then he starts putting together games that are like 225, 250, 265. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, what do we do here? I don't care. The Jets have never had that problem in the history of mankind. So I do not care about that problem right now. Get me one. Can
Right.
you get me one quarterback that can play for 16 games? So I don't give a damn. Well, if you have two quarterbacks, then you have none. Well, we don't have none right now. One's hurt and one we don't know anything about, and anything he's mostly given us has been sadness. And so for me, the way I look at it is Rodgers plays no matter what, unless Zach is doing something crazy
Right.
moving forward, which he has the ability to do. I just don't think he has the seasoning yet. If we are going to see it, it's going to be later in the year. I also don't know how he's going to play in the cold. I don't know how the Jets are going to trust him in that. The Jets need to open the playbook and trust this kid and let him throw the football. It's the only way he's going to be good. Game manager, he looks too hesitant. And even in the beginning of the game, I didn't like how he was getting rid of the ball. It was almost like too quick. Like he couldn't wait to get the ball out. It's like, I got the ball. Here, take it, go. Here, go, go, go. And it's like, just settle in, go in your drop, step up. You're going to get hit, right? He knows this. He's a professional. He just
Hmm.
has to just do it more. But Victor says if he's throwing 3 TDs, 300 yards every game, then fine. Unlikely though. And I think I don't think Victor's being negative in saying that. I'm a betting man,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty good. And you go by the odds, and the odds are that he just isn't going to deliver that. Odds are that he's going to give you what he gave you last year before the AVT injury and a little bit more. And I'll take it for right now, right?
Right.
We were very fortunate that we were able to win that game because there were times where I kept saying, wait, I can't wait to wake up tomorrow and people blame this Jets defense because they allow Hurts to go down the field and score twice in a game for a team that's 5-0. Could the offense at least give us 17 points to give the defense something to work with, right? And every time they came through and bailed the Jets out. I couldn't believe it. I never watched, I don't think even in the Rex Ryan times, yeah, they had games where they dominated people, but there wasn't a time where the offense was so bad that I was like, oh, the defense can't come back from this now. This is just too much. How many times are they going to get a turnover? How many times are they going to get a sack? How many times are they going to get an interception? How many times are they going to keep doing this and giving the Jets offense opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to get in the end zone? If we play like that the rest of the year, it's going to be a grind. It's going to be a 6 to 8 win,
Mhm.
7 win type of a grind. Me personally, with that defense, and Liz, we're just gonna dive into the schedule a little bit now, but the hard part of the schedule is done, guys. It just is. Now, I'm not saying we can't get beat by a lot of these teams. I'm just saying if you put things in perspective, and I would hope that the Jets players do, it's like as long as we come out with the same tenacity and the same practice, mindset,
We
we
can be
just played. We could beat anybody. We just played. We just played Buffalo, Dallas, Kansas City, and Philly. I mean, there's a good chance here that the only game that we thought that we could have won now that Aaron Rodgers was gone. Let's say Aaron Rodgers got hurt right before the season, like in practice right before the season, and we're looking at the first 6 games, and you're going, with Zach Wilson, maybe the Patriots, and we lost to them. And so it's like you're looking at an offer, and we're sitting here now today, 3-3. You just can't get any better than that. And you look at this, you get 2 weeks, Liz, to prepare for the Giants. 2 weeks. The Giants
we,
don't get 2 weeks to prepare for the Jets, but the
no.
Jets get 2 weeks to prepare for the Giants, and they get Reed back, and they get Sauce back, and they get Michael Carter back, and all the little bumps and bruises that you get over the first couple games get to heal, get to set in a little bit more. You
Yeah.
can't get complacent as a fan, Liz, but I know in all of our Jet fan minds we're saying, do not set us up for the failure, please relax. But then there's another part of our brains, a logical part, Liz, a real
Yeah.
logical one that thinks the Jets could be 5-3 after the next 2 games.
Right. I think they will be.
Well, of course, you think you'll be, because you'll think we're going to win every game, Liz, and that's where I have to come in and bring some clarity to the whole scenario. And I think what did Victor say here? We get Dwayne. Yeah, no, we're good. Dwayne Brown could just relax a little bit. I think this Jets offensive line got a lot better once he was out, and you were able to move also Mackay back to his natural position. He's looking comfortable out there. He's looking strong again. He's playing football. So this line's looking a lot better to me. And obviously Zach is looking a lot better, which is helping the line because he's getting rid of the ball quicker. He's
Right.
getting into rhythm. And that's going to help, like we said, the play action. It's going to help the screen game. It's going to help guys not stack in the box as well. So Liz, after we get to 5-3, okay, after playing the Chargers, then we play Vegas in Vegas, which it may not be. I think we should win that game to get to
I
6-3, but
then we got Miami.
it's the travel game too. When you look at it,
Right.
traveling West Coast, you never know. You could get beat, but I think the Jets should be 6-3. This is where you could get kind of a little bit in trouble, Liz, and this is why you have to win that Giants game. You have to win 2 out of 3 against the Giants, the Chargers, and Vegas. You
Right.
should be able to sweep, but you got to win 2 out of 3, because then you play Buffalo and Miami back to back division games. One's
Right.
in Buffalo. That's not going to be easy. So if you wind up messing up where you don't beat the Giants, and then you lose to the Chargers, and then you beat Vegas, and then you blow the next 2 against Buffalo, Miami, then you're looking at 1-4 in the month of November, right? After starting 3-3. And then it's like you basically have to win out, so it's really important. And not just that, there's some teams that are still in the mix here, right? You
Yeah.
got the Chargers, who in playoff contention. I forgot what Vegas's record is. Someone please remind me in the chat. You got Buffalo, you got Miami, right?
Right.
So right there, and then Liz, as we move forward, okay, so let's say we're 6-3. I'm going to go best case scenario right now. We're 6-3 because I'm going with the Liz scenario. So we're 6-3 right there, but then we run into Buffalo in Buffalo. I'll take a split there. We get to 6-4. Then we play Miami. This is Miami at home. We got to win this game at home. Even
Right.
if let's say we could split, I would rather split with winning at home and losing later in the year as the schedule even gets softer, so to speak, than it's even going to get in the next in these games right here. And so then you're looking at 6-4. You beat Miami, you get to 7-4. Then you should be able to beat Atlanta, who's still a young team trying to find its way to get to 8-4.
In the
Then
command.
you have another young team. You got Houston. They're right in the playoff mix. You got to beat them. Now, I don't think they're going to be in the playoff mix come the time the Jets play them. But if they are, you got to beat them. You got to beat them, Liz. A young team like that, they're not ready for this yet. The Jets,
You talk about
they're
the
what's up?
Texans? The
Yeah.
Texans?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they got to go. So then that's 9
Yeah.
wins, Liz. Then you're sitting here and you're going, okay, Miami, let's see you lose there. And then Washington. I mean, we should be able to beat them at home, Liz. And I mean, you're talking about 10 wins. And I don't know what Cleveland will be. They have one of the better defenses in the league. They could beat you and say that we beat New England at the end of the game, we get 11 wins. Dude, if you get 11 wins out of this season without Aaron Rodgers, you have far exceeded this season. That is super intense. It would be one of the best Jet seasons of all time. Just when you look at everything factored in, and you'd be in the playoffs with the shot.
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers, maybe without. Even worst case scenario, Liz. If you go over the schedule again. All right. So we're 3-3. Let's say you got to beat the Giants. It does. If you don't beat the Giants, then none of this matters. But you should beat them. You got to get that. So you get to 4-3, right? Then you lose to the Chargers 4-4. Then you beat Vegas 5-4. Then you lose to Buffalo 5-5. Then you lose to Miami, okay, 5-6. Beat Atlanta 6-6. Beat Houston 7-6. Lose to Miami again 7-7. Beat Washington 8-7. Lose to Cleveland 8-8. And beat New England 9-8. And let's say you even lose that game 8-8. It's still a great season considering all that you've lost. And so really, the Jets did themselves a humongous favor by being able to break even coming out of the first 6 games. But honestly, the way that they're playing right now, I have them more of the Liz path, where I really can see them winning 9-11 games still, which is absolutely insanity. But Zach has to play at least where he's at right now for the Jets to be able to do their thing still, Liz. And so I'm not really sure where I'm at with it. I'm still not going to go to the stadium yet to go watch Zach. I'm waiting for the mark, and I don't care if I don't watch it. I'm waiting for the marquee game from Zach before I travel 5 hours and torture myself. Because last week I was in my living room yelling at my TV every time the offense came on, saying, "I can't believe this. I can't believe we're going to lose this game. This defense is putting on almost a masterpiece, except for the first quarter. And I can't believe we're going to lose this game. Or I can't believe we're going to lose this." Then field goal, field goal, field goal. I can't do this, Liz. It's not. I can't. I'll lose my mind. So I'm not going to go and travel 5 hours for that, and then 5 hours back, a 10-hour day of travel to go watch Zach Wilson piss me off. So
isn't Zach? Aren't you watching him, and aren't you seeing him evolve? Aren't you seeing him improving every week? He's running for his life a lot less than he was in the beginning of the season, and he's connecting with Garrett, and Garrett can pick a ball out of the air and run with it. And it's just you got to see it happening. You got to see the vision. It's happening. Zach is improving every week.
But we can't erase the first 2 years, Liz, and that's the problem.
It's a restart.
Now he can erase it by putting together a full season of these things, but it's got to be more than what we've seen. And he knows that, and I think they know that. But it's not just on him either, right? I think Hackett, this kind of like, okay, we're going to open it up for him / oh no, now we're going to kind of regress it and walk it back. I don't really like playing 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I guess you do have to dictate to your opponent, so to speak. And you do have to use Breece Hall more. There's some games where it just gets weird, where it just seems like he's not used properly. You're playing the best run defense in the league in the Eagles, which you outran them by a couple yards in that game.
Mhm.
But when you look at it, you're like, you still have to keep trying for play action's sake, for stacking the box sake. You have to let him know. You can't be one dimensional with Zach Wilson and put him in those scenarios where he's constantly 3-7, 3-8, 3-9. More screens. I don't care. Just get the ball in Garrett's hands. But first and second downs, we can't have negative plays by doing run pass.
No.
We just can't, because it puts the team it puts Zach in a bad spot. And these penalties, to start the season, the Jets were one of the least penalized teams to start the season. And just kind of the last couple of games, it just had like bonehead penalties. And they've been in really unopportune times. And some have been the refs, messing around. But some have been on them. And it's just they're not an opportune time. And we can't put Zach Wilson in a 3rd and 12, a 3rd and 15. They barely trust him to open up the full playbook as it is. And it's kind of like they're just managing him. What do you think you're going to do when it's 3rd and 12 or second and 15 or 2nd and 20? Like they're not going to just open it up for them. They're going to call manageable plays to kind of inch their way up. And then 3rd down, we're going to throw. We have to have better play series. Sometimes throw it on 1st down. Sometimes do play action on 1st down. Maybe add in a trick play here and there every once in a while as well, just to kind of mix it up a little bit, because there's a lot of pressure on this kid. And we're starting out the gate, and I'm looking at the play series. It's like, the first 2 quarters of the game, you should be establishing the run. Establish Breece Hall as a player in the scheme. So then that way, in the second half, you could start using your play action and start maybe getting some big plays, with Garrett Wilson down the field, and start putting points up and start flipping field position for your defense. But kind of like, these kid glove kind of attitude at times, I just don't really like it. You know what I mean? And it doesn't set a good tone for the team. But Liz, I want to know, is there anything happening at all whatsoever before we get going in the Jets world? Is there any signings you're going to, any events, anything coming up?
No, I wasn't able to go on Tuesday night to see Brees and Garrett. They were over there signing again, which was a great event. But no, I don't think there's nothing coming up before we beat the crap out of the Giants 35-7 in 10 days or so. But
Yeah.
my prediction, write that down, 35-7 Jets against the New York Giants.
All right, I'm gonna go 35. No, I'm not doing that. Liz, come
Yes,
on.
you are.
They're gonna
Yeah,
have
you
to
are.
prove it to me first. They're gonna have to open it up on them. And Mike, I'm not going to repeat on the show what you just wrote, but I appreciate the support, and I'm sure Zach supports you as well. Eric says, I have a question. Do you guys think uh trading who back? Oh, Hardman back is
Hardman.
good or bad? Well, you just weren't using the guy.
No.
And Joe. Joe is a good player, GM. He didn't want to just, have this guy sitting on the bench the rest of the year. This guy just came off of coming from a Super Bowl. Just not good looks, And the rumbles were already starting to kind of go, why are you starting Cobb? He's got the worst percentage for this and this and that and that and this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was already starting to start. It's like, you know what? Let's just send him back somewhere where he has a chance to play. He has a chance to play meaningful minutes. And Joe always tries to take care of players in that fashion if he can. Now, what Joe won't do is overpay for a position that he knows shouldn't be overpaid. But I think when he tries to move players, I really do think he tries to get them in positions where they're going to get a lot more play. Like when he moved Elijah Moore to the Browns, people are like, oh, he moved him to the Browns. That sucks. But when you really look at it, the Browns were a team that's building good offensive line. They have a good defense. They're starting to put it together. You got Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson needs a player opposite Amari Cooper. Like you're thinking, okay, he's going to get a lot more touches there. I don't think that Joe really tries to go out here and try to do wrong by these players. I think he tries his best. I think he did right by Hardman. And who knows? Maybe there's another receiver, maybe a Devontae Adams. No, I don't know. They're going to be able to get Devontae Adams. But imagine That would be absolutely insane. But no, they
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do that, I don't believe.
Mm.
And then we have Victor says, what does that tell you? That pressure wasn't that bad last year. His line was decent. Needs to navigate the pocket like a pro and make big boy throws. I think that's what we discussed earlier in the year, right? I mean, earlier in the show, right? We talked about, how he's staying in the pocket more and he's not just going straight to the rollout, get on the edge and look for a free play down the field.
Right.
Simon says he thinks the Jets, he's thinking about 9-8 wins. I think that's fair. I think 9-8 wins is a fair thing. I think we could get a little homer with it when we start getting into the 10, 11, 12, 13 type of stuff. But I mean, if you just go based off of what you've seen today, you could see a version of the Jets where they can get 11, 12 wins, if things go their way. If they get through, here's another test. The Jets already passed their first test. If the Jets get to Buffalo, when they play in Buffalo and they play Miami at home, if they split there and then they win like the Giants, Chargers, Raiders game, and then all of a sudden they, maybe they lose to Buffalo but beat Miami, you're like, okay, they're serious now because they're beating all the crappy teams. They're kind of splitting with the good teams and they're still performing against them as well. And so I'm super excited, Liz. So we got your score, even though I don't know. Yeah, that's right. You're not going to be here next week, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. All right. So we still got one more week of you. Kevin's gone for a little bit. He's got some family stuff he has to take care of, but he said he'll jump in whenever he can. And so we're shorthanded. We're like the Jets here. We're missing a few players. JR will be back pretty soon, but the show must go on. Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you're please checking out the audio show on Spotify as well. Just type in Jets Guru. I try to update that at least once or twice a week. Guys on YouTube, again, like Clayton and Jets 1969, really appreciate your support out there. Please share, please support, please check out other Jet fans and their content. There's some great stuff out there. We're not trying to hog the airwaves. We're just trying to be one of the better fan pages that you come to each and every day. So appreciate your support, Liz. Thank you once again for coming and joining us.
Real quick. First of all, did you score for the Jets Giants game?
I don't have a score quite yet. I'm going to save that for next week. I want to see who's exactly playing.
The other thing is I want to just mention, our pals out there at Gotham City. Joe Klecko is going to be at their tailgate, and Wayne Krabet's going to be over at American Dream Mall. If you don't have tickets to the game, all for the Jets Giants game. So look for those things to do if you can't make it out to the game.
Liz, we got to get Wayne on the show. We got to figure it out. We got to make it happen.
Okay.
That's the show.
I'll give him a shout.
All right. Thank you guys so much. As always, Jets Guru in the house. JETS, Jets. Enjoy your bye week and your football where you could just lean back and just eat and not have to worry about the Jets whatsoever. Have a great evening and a great week. We're out.
Bye.
Psych! Jets Guru back in the house for the encore. I'm here for the cheers. I'm here for the questions. I'm not ending this live stream. We're going all night, baby. YouTube in the house. Jets, what up? In the house.